When an object crashes, they're going to scatter a variety of materials around. Knobs, control devices, plastic, wires, whatever. If it's coming apart, it's going to leave those pieces behind. And those are the kinds of pieces that I want to find and have found some of. Hi everybody, my name is Frank Kimbler and I'm an associate professor of earth science living and working in Roswell, New Mexico. I like to think of it as the ET capital of the world. You know, I've spent almost 10 years looking for physical evidence of the Roswell crash. In fact, right now we're looking at some drone footage of the crash site. I thought it would be a good, nice little addition to the talk to have a look at the crash site. Some of you have never seen it before. Some of my artifact discoveries have recently been featured on Ancient Aliens, Season 15, Episode 2, Relics of Roswell. I'm going to take you on an adventure. We're going to take a look at some behind-the-scenes stuff, some amazing discoveries not talked about on the Ancient Aliens, Relics of Roswell episode. What we're looking at here is a bird's eye view of the Roswell debris field. Might be even the one that the alien pilot saw as he was crashing. Kind of an eerie thought on that. Off on the right-hand side, you're going to see kind of a white area, right middle. In that white area, I found some military buttons out there that dated from 1947, and those have been actually proven that they were military buttons, which sort of proves that the military was out there. An interesting thing about going out to the debris field, that's what we call it, the Roswell crash site, is that if you think about the historical, read some of the stories about UFOs, and when they land, they leave behind places where the vegetation doesn't grow. Well, a lot of the material, a lot of the artifacts that I have found have come from the areas that are kind of cleared off, like you see in this video. And in addition to metallic artifacts, I have found a number of other artifacts out there. In particular, I found some Bakelite-like plastic after a rainstorm that was just laying on the surface. It's absolutely fascinating to be out there. It gives you kind of an eerie feeling, especially at night with the stars. It's beautiful. I've gone out there with a black light at night looking for things. And so you're going to have the opportunity to take a look at some of the artifacts that have come from the debris field. I like that drone shadow. It's kind of cool, kind of floating around over there. Too bad it wasn't a UFO. It's my own. Anyway, Gary Holloway was the person that shot this drone footage. He's a good friend of mine, and he does good work. So it was very nice to have that. Now here is a picture of some of the artifacts that I had found out there. This particular piece is not as old and dingy as some of it, but this is one of them. They're fun to look at and to hold and examine. They're unusual looking. Some of them are twisted and mangled up. When you hold them in your hands, you get this idea of being, well, gee, could this be an actual piece of an extraterrestrial spacecraft? It's pretty cool to look at this. Some of them, when you look at them under a little microscope, you can see some scratches from the fact they've been laying around out there for a long time. This one's been scratched up a lot. So we take this material, we put it on a microscope stage, and we look at it to see what it's made out of and such. So the older pieces like this one end up being some of the most fascinating ones that are out there. The old ones are kind of crusty looking. They've been buried for a very long time. So we take these samples, they're mounted on a stage that goes into an electron microscope. And the electron microscope also has the capability of looking at the individual elements. And so we get high magnification, and we also get the wonderful element concentration. This is kind of like one of the machines, what it looks like, the electron microscope. So when this sample, the older sample, was looked at under the microscope, it showed, and this is 500 times, it actually showed something that looked like a rod or a tube. On the left-hand side, that silvery stuff is aluminum. Now, I've seen these rods and tubes before. always thought they were tree roots, but they're not. According to the research scientist that was looking at this, these have an unusual composition, and they're not tree roots. The other little fibers that you see, the little pieces of stuff that looks like hair, is in fact fungus. So we're going to take a look at the buildup of the image. You can actually hear the sound of the electron microscope. We're going to look at the buildup of the image as it looks at the sample at some 5,000 times magnification. Now this is stuff you don't see in Ancient Aliens. And then we're also going to have the opportunity to listen to what some of the electron microscope engineers, the scientists, are looking at. So I'm gonna be quiet here and let you hear what they say about what they find. It's kind of fascinating.
Tin and silver.
Well, iron. See, the carbon shows some yellow. So it's not there, it's in here too, some carbon. See the yellow dots?
Yep. Yep.
And to a fire or something that when they blow up, I don't know.
I love that when the scientist comes out and says, "Oh, looks like this was in a fire, or maybe it blew up." Yeah, I think so. Right out at the debris field and scattered stuff over about a square mile. So I wanted to explain what you're looking at in the image here and some of the fascinating things that were found. In the color, top left in the little boxes, it's yellow. That yellow splotchy stuff is carbon, and then you get the blue coloration there, which is oxygen on that. And then we're going to take a look at, there's some aluminum in red, that's the next box over. In green is silicon. Magnesium is yellow, phosphorus is light blue, and one of the more fascinating ones, second row, third one over, is silver. And then way over on the right, bottom lower right box, is tin. These are things that normally do not show up at all. Normally they might be impurities, but not in this concentration. So the rod ended up being kind of unusual, having both tin and silver in it. And it's metallic, it's not all organic, and it's surrounded by some carbon, probably from a fire. This piece right here was very interesting. It's been clipped off because it's been looked at before. We put this one back on the electron microscope stage to take a look at it. We have to put it on that, and then we shove it into the electron microscope that can look at the elements in this. And then what happens is we get the answer back. So all of these things come back in nice vivid color. And one of the things that we can see in this image is that this has barium. So barium is showing up in that bottom, you'll see the silver, it says AG on it, and that's in that bottom in the white, and also there's some indium. So we've got barium, we've got silver, and we've got indium. You can also see it on the left in green. There's indium and silver. There's some copper and manganese in this. But the indium and the silver, it shouldn't be there, and neither should the barium. We're going to talk about the barium. It's kind of fascinating. I always thought it was some kind of a ground impurity. So, interesting thing about the barium is that this gentleman right here in this picture, his name is Aaron Velasquez. He's with Theta Plate in Albuquerque, and Theta Plate did some of the analytical work on the Ancient Aliens specimens. And, he basically has some friends that work in the nuclear industry, and he spoke to them about what we had found, and he talked about the barium in there. Come to find out that barium is a direct result or a byproduct of nuclear weapon testing. So that was pretty fascinating, that this material could have been from the date, leftovers from the nuclear testing, or it might have been something that was related to the crash itself. I don't think it's a natural impurity at all. So I went back and looked at some of my old research that I had done. And of course, this is me out at the debris field. I found my first artifact in the background back there. This piece was one that was found, and this one was not featured on Ancient Aliens, but I wanted to show you because it's kind of a nice piece of metallic debris. Some of it's very shiny. Some of it I think is trash. Some of it has to be of ET origin. It's hard to get people to believe it's there. The fascinating things that is the older stuff. This material right here is buried 3 or 4 inches deep when it's found. It is twisted and mangled up, and it has some very interesting properties to it. So this was a different show. This was through the Smithsonian Network, and this was UFOs Declassified. The guy's name is Dave Burley. There's me in the picture, and then on the right-hand side is Don Schmidt. Now, Dave Burley worked as a metallurgist for Alcoa. And when he was looking at this, he said that the barium, which clearly shows up as a Ba in this picture, basically says it's an impurity that probably comes from ground contamination. I don't think so. There's also a little bit of sulfur. That's from basically gypsum. It's a sulfate mineral that's in the soil out there. One of the weird things is zirconium. You can see that between the silicon and the sulfur. But barium shows up a lot in these samples. This was a second sample that was run. I know it says Jones Dust at the top, but this is what it was done in Jones Hall. So over at the University of New Mexico Tech, I'm sorry, I got to get it right. So silicon, magnesium, manganese, iron, and of course the barium shows up again in this. And the zirconium was really kind of a very strange thing to see in this stuff. Now, I took Giorgio and Linda out to the debris field to do a little bit of metal detecting. And I wanted to go to kind of a historically significant spot. The crash site itself is historically significant. But an interesting thing, this gentleman right here, appearing with Don Schmidt, UFO and famous UFO Roswell investigator, that guy wearing the cowboy hat, his name is Bill Brazel. Now, he is related to Mac Brazel, and the part where they were parked, the area where they were parked, is an area where he had found some fragments of UFO material, Roswell material. Now, Giorgio, after I was looking around with my metal detector for several hours, it was about to break off. I think the film crew was getting bored. So I gave the detector to Giorgio, and he started looking, and within a few minutes, he found something. And what he found was a piece of wire. Now, interesting story about this wire is that I have found several pieces of this wire out there before, and I just throw it in my backpack and I don't think anything about it. We decided to have this material analyzed to see if it had anything unusual in it. So we basically took it to Theta Plate and had Aaron Velasquez take a look at this rusty iron wire. This is me talking to Linda in reference to what we're going to do with the material and where we're going to send it off at. The white machine in the background on the right is an X-ray fluorescence machine, X-ray, and it basically can look at the elemental composition of things. And we're looking at the screen. We found selenium in it. It didn't show up in other tests. Here's a close-up view of the wire. It just looks like typical junk wire. But then we sent this off to the lab in Dallas, Texas. Alternate Systems, I think is their name. Barium showed up again in this, and you can see it. I'm kind of like in the way. So the barium is just to the left of the iron peak, but also we had indium show up as well as some molybdenum. So the barium was the more fascinating part of this, and the barium, along with oxygen, there's oxygen there, comes from the rust, and silicon, a little bit of aluminum. Don't know why that's there, but it is. But the molybdenum and the indium and the barium is fascinating. Once again, we strongly think that it came from a nuclear explosion. I was lucky enough to be able to handle and touch some of Linda's material that was that layered material that the To the Stars Academy has been investigating. Fascinating layered bismuth magnesium stuff. Took a nice picture of it. This is it. I don't know what to make of it. So here's a picture of Giorgio and the producer, director of the show. We're out at the debris field and talking about the day. There's the cameraman shooting a picture of me, shooting a picture of him. I like doing stuff like that. Anyway, you can contact me basically at my email address, which is fkimbler@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook, and I'll have to say that this was a very fun talk to give. I had to learn some new things. I've never done green screen. My eyes are kind of like glowing like aliens. And the reason for that is my screen's not green, it's blue, and so are my eyes. So I made this wonderful mistake. So this was really kind of fun. If you have any questions, you can contact me. I'll be basically available to talk to folks. Anyway, signing off from Roswell, New Mexico. Love you guys. Stay healthy. Be safe. Take care. Bye-bye.